councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes.
It's about illuminating the philosophies that shape our society. It's about scrutinizing history that we may save the future. It's about understanding control that we may act with free will. It's about truth, known and unknown. It's about reality, seen and unseen. It's about time to take a closer look. Your host is Michael Corbyn.
And good Friday morning to you. And today, as I promised, we're going to have a really, really powerful program. The watchword today is political corruption. That's kind of like the watchword every day, but political corruption is what we're going to be looking at today. And we're going to look at some significant corruption. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking with a person here. You're familiar with her. But this material you're going to hear today has never, ever been published or broadcast. And it is the culmination of several years of intense research. Now, what I'm talking about, and it's kind of interesting that the program that we're doing is falling on the day that it is today, October the 28th. Because Special Prosecutor Patrick Fitzgerald had an indictment in his hand Friday morning and was standing before District Judge Thomas Hogan, who must sign off on the first official charges in the leak of a CIA operative's identity more than 2 years ago. Now, I'm reading this article from Fox News. Washington Post reporter Carol Leonig told Fox News that Fitzgerald was set to present the charge against Vice President Dick Cheney's top aide, Louis Scooter Libby, late Friday morning. Now, the indictment was expected to charge Libby with a felony for making false statements to mislead the grand jury. This is just the tip of the iceberg, folks. Now, Fox News has learned that Libby will step down as Cheney's chief of staff, and a replacement will be named as early as Saturday. The vice president's office will release a statement when the indictment is handed down. President Bush is expected to remark on the case in this afternoon today. Now, the charge is based on the assertion that Libby was not upfront with the grand jury about when he first learned the identity of CIA operative Valerie Plame, sources told Fox News on Friday. Libby had first told the grand jury that he learned her identity from reporters, but his own notes later showed he learned her identity from Cheney. Now, Karl Rove, President Bush's top political aide, is being spared from criminal charges on Friday, but the possibility he would later be charged remained open. This is very interesting, folks. Now, the special counsel has advised Mr. Rove that he has made no decision about whether or not to bring charges, and that Mr. Rove's status has not changed. Mr. Rove will continue to cooperate fully with the special counsel's efforts to complete the investigation. We are confident that when the special counsel finishes his work, he will conclude that Mr. Rove has done nothing wrong. That's according to Rove's attorney, Robert Luskin, who said in a statement that he released Friday. Now, reports have indicated that Fitzgerald would keep Rove under investigation. According to a source familiar with the court, the grand jury set to expire on Friday is a regular grand jury that has already had one extension of its term. It cannot be extended beyond this day. That means that Fitzgerald would have to call for a new jury or simply proceed without any jury at all if he wanted to continue to pursue Rove. So you see how this game is played. This is a game. Documents relating to the case were expected to be released at or shortly after noon Eastern Daylight Time on Friday. The documents were being released at the Department of Justice and the U.S. District Court. Now, last week, Fitzgerald set up a website for the public to view documents relating to the investigation. Fitzgerald is holding a 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Conference, which is about noon today here, Mountain Time, to discuss the grand jury's activities. The White House said it would comment on Friday's activities after Fitzgerald speaks. Now, that is just the surface of the magnitude of this problem. Okay? And living true to our name, a closer look, we are going to take a closer look at what's really going on here. Because a lot of people say, well, sure, a couple of people got killed in the outing of Valerie Plame, but so what? Well, I got to tell you that it goes much, much deeper than that. Now, as we know, Patrick Fitzgerald is a special prosecutor on what is being dubbed as the Plamegate incident. Now, significance of Plamegate in the bigger picture: destroyed a global weapons of mass destruction search team, okay, which is kind of a pattern of the Bush crime family cabal in the last 50 years. We're talking about conspiracy, collusion, cover-up. Now, we are going to be looking at, for example, one angle that we're going to be doing today. We're going to be looking at core sets of patterns, okay, and also the same high-level operatives, about 50 to 200 of them, old and new organizations, and a new cadre of indebted, controlled foot political soldiers. That is what lies ahead on the program today, because I will be joined here momentarily by Indira Singh. Now, as I said before, you'll know that name, Indira Singh, because, and I'm just going to give you kind of a real short recap of who she is. Indira is a IT specialist, and she was working for J.P. Morgan Chase Bank in New York. She'd been contracted by them to design an artificial intelligence software system that would work in real time in Chase Manhattan's banks all over the world, and it would be something that would detect fraud at the teller level or what have you. And it was through that job, that contract that she had, that she learned about a company in Boston called Ptech. Well, what you've heard so far is just, again, it's just scratching the surface of a much, much bigger picture. And that is what we're going to be talking with her about today. As I said before, this material has never been made public. It's never been broadcast before, so you're going to hear it here first on this program. So without further ado, let's go to my guest, Indira Singh. Good morning, Indira, and thank you for being with me on the program today.
Good morning, Michael. Thanks for having me back.
No problem. Now, what I did was I started out here talking about this grand jury and the Plamegate investigator, Patrick Fitzgerald.
Right.
And we're talking about, the idea that as I understand it, Libby Scooter is probably definitely going to be indicted today, but they're holding off on Karl Rove. But the kicker here, what I find really interesting and puzzling, is that the grand jury's term expires today. So the only way that they can continue an investigation of Karl Rove is to do it either, kind of solo without a grand jury, which I don't think is going to happen. And what I'd like to do is let's back into this conversation that we're going to have today. Let's start out with Patrick Fitzgerald. Who is this character?
Well, Patrick Fitzgerald is someone that I've had in my crosshairs since he was involved with the quote-unquote prosecution of an Al-Qaeda, someone connected with Al-Qaeda, and in August 2003, he led the prosecution into this person. But his affiliation with terror and Al-Qaeda, shall we say, based terror goes way back. He, for instance, prosecuted World Trade Center 93 Sheikh Rahman. And after that, he served on a team of prosecutors investigating Osama bin Laden. Mm-hmm. After that, he served as chief counsel in prosecutions related to the 98 U.S. Embassy bombings in Tanzania and Kenya. So after 9/11, he shows up, and the very first 9/11 Al-Qaeda-related prosecution in the United States was to someone who ran a Benevolence International Foundation. This person is Inam Arnaut. That's A-R-N-A-U-T. Mm-hmm. And your listeners can, look up the significance of that. When he gave Inam Arnaut basically a free pass for the connections to Al-Qaeda and therefore 9/11, I knew we were in serious trouble. Mm-hmm. And Here's how that happened. Benevolence International Foundation is mentioned in 9/11 lawsuits. They're on the terror list, the U.S. List of designated terror charities, and they're listed in the $1 trillion lawsuit brought by Motley Ness and Gershon against the Saudis, and also another 9/11 lawsuit. So Benevolence International Foundation is huge. It's big. It was based in Chicago, but it had arms in Boston and down in Texas. Inal Marnot was their main operative. Patrick Fitzgerald has been appointed or showed up at every significant terrorist-related event in this country's history.
Right.
And you would think that he has the inside architecture and the links of these people very well understood by the time of his prosecution in 2003, and indeed he has, and that's exactly why he's significant. Because he, I believe, he basically got the judge to pin the charges that he was sent to jail for, or not was sent to jail for, was just basically the misutilization of charity funds. He sent to the funds that were received to Muslim fighters in Bosnia and Chechnya.
Right.
Hardly a 9/11 indictment.
Mm-hmm.
When that happened, as you know, I was working with someone in Senator Grassley's office as a Secret Service agent, because the way we get these is by tracking the money, financial crimes.
Right.
And Secret Service, is a Department of Treasury. But also it's more than that. I believe he was appointed to find out what I knew and to clear it and to cover tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So I told him basically that I was going to lay low and not name names and not stop my investigation and my, connecting the dots with the Ptech situation depending on what happened with Inal Marnot.
Right.
When Inal Marnot was given 10 years just for, oops, I sent the money to Chechnya instead of somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And Patrick Fitzgerald was a prosecutor there. I knew that this country was in serious trouble, really serious trouble. And I was looking at an email that I sent to the Secret Service agent. I sent it in August 19th, 2003, and I said, the deal's off, the bet's off. I said, this stinks of a cover-up. I don't know how big the cover-up is yet, but I'm going to find out. And the deal's off. I'm going to name names. I'm going to start talking, and I did.
Okay. Indy, hold that right there. Indira, hold that right there. We're going to take our break. When we come back, we will continue, okay?
Okay.
All right. Indira Singh is my guest. And, folks, again, brace yourselves. You're going to hear quite a story today. And as I said before, this has not ever been broadcast or released in the public venue. You're hearing the culmination of a several-year-long investigation by Indira Singh, my guest. And this does go to some very, very interesting and high places. We're going to take our break. When we come back, we will continue. I'm Michael Corbyn. You're listening to A Closer Look. Dish up A Closer Look. And again, joining me this morning is my guest, Indira Singh, a very courageous lady. She has foregone a very lucrative career to get to the truth about what happened on 9/11. And I can tell you, folks, her life has been an interesting journey since then, and she has really penetrated what I believe to be the real action and the real cabal about what is in charge, who's in charge, and where all of this goes. And as I've said earlier, this thing about Valerie Plame and the Plamegate incident is just the tip, literally the tip of the iceberg.